And yet, the world rarely understands this kind of man. At first, people are drawn to him. They admire the way he moves through life without needing validation. They feel inspired by his self-discipline, his independence and the calm confidence that doesn't demand attention. But then something strange happens. Admiration begins to shift into unease. Curiosity turns into criticism, and respect quietly morphs into resentment. Why does this happen? Why do people who once admired the Sigma male's mystery eventually begin to dislike, even hate, the same qualities they praised before? The answer lies deep within human psychology. We live in a world wired for conformity, where most people feel comfortable when others act in predictable ways. But Sigma males are unpredictable. They move by their own code, not society's rhythm. That difference disturbs the emotional equilibrium of those around them. It's not that Sigma males intend to provoke discomfort. They simply embody autonomy in a world addicted to approval. Research in social psychology calls this status incongruence. When someone doesn't fit the expected social role, others subconsciously react with resistance or envy. It's the same reason the quiet student who excels without trying is disliked, or the colleague who never participates in gossip becomes the target of it. The Sigma doesn't fit the social mold, and that alone triggers insecurity in others. But this story isn't about blame. It's about awareness. Because when you understand why people project negativity towards strength, silence, and independence, you stop taking it personally. You realize their reaction isn't about you, it's about what you represent. You remind them of the freedom they lost. Let's explore the deeper truths, the 6 silent reasons people suddenly start hating Sigma males. Number 1, your independence threatens their control. In most social groups, control doesn't always announce itself with force. It disguises itself as concern. I'm just worried about you. I think you should do this instead. Or, are you sure that's a good idea? On the surface, these words sound caring, but beneath them often lies a subtle desire to direct another person's choices. This isn't always malicious, it's psychological. Humans crave predictability. Studies in social psychology show that predictability gives people a sense of safety and belonging. When someone's actions are easy to anticipate, the group feels stable. But when a person breaks that pattern, when they act on independent thought rather than collective expectation, it triggers discomfort and even silent resistance. This is where the Sigma male stands apart. His decisions are guided by instinct and purpose, not approval. He doesn't explain every move or seek consensus before acting. In psychology, this level of autonomy is associated with internal locus of control, the belief that one's life outcomes depend on personal choices, not external validation. It's the opposite of what many in society unconsciously live by. Because most people operate from an external locus of control, depending on others' opinions for a sense of direction or worth, they find Sigma independence unsettling. When a Sigma male declines manipulation, be it emotional guilt, peer pressure, or subtle control, he holds up a mirror to others' dependence. That reflection can sting. It reveals how much they've been living for approval, rather than authenticity. This cognitive dissonance, the clash between how people see themselves and the truth reflected back, often transforms into resentment. It's easier to label the Sigma as arrogant, cold, or difficult than to confront one's own insecurity. Sociologically, such behavior disrupts group hierarchy. Every social circle has unspoken norms and power dynamics designed to maintain cohesion. The Sigma, by refusing to conform, quietly rewrites those rules. His detachment from validation erodes the invisible chains of control that others use to maintain influence. What looks like rebellion is actually self-mastery, a kind of psychological sovereignty that few attain. In essence, the Sigma's calm resistance to being controlled isn't defiance, it's alignment. It's living from conviction instead of compliance. And while that autonomy may unsettle those who fear unpredictability, it also commands respect, because deep down everyone wishes they were that free. Number 2, your silence feels like judgment. When a Sigma male speaks less, the world often fills the silence for him. People start projecting their own insecurities, doubts, and assumptions into the quiet he creates. They imagine judgment where there is none, arrogance where there is only focus, and mystery where there is simply peace. In psychology, this phenomenon is known as projection, a defense mechanism where individuals attribute their own feelings or insecurities to someone else. When the Sigma male chooses silence, he unknowingly becomes a mirror, reflecting others' inner worlds back to them. Those who are uncomfortable with themselves interpret his calm observation as disapproval or superiority because they are unfamiliar with the strength of stillness. In truth, the Sigma's silence is not an act of judgment but conservation. He understands that words carry energy and that constant talking drains both mental and emotional resources. Neuroscience shows that silence helps the brain regenerate neurons in the hippocampus, the region responsible for memory and learning. By speaking less, the Sigma maintains mental clarity and emotional stability, filtering unnecessary noise that clutters most people's minds. His quietness is a conscious decision to guard his focus, allowing him to observe patterns others miss. This reflective behavior aligns with the principles of Stoicism, a philosophy that values self-control, discipline, and understanding before reaction. However, in a modern world obsessed with constant communication and validation, silence has become almost threatening. Social psychology refers to this discomfort as the social silence effect, where people feel uneasy when no verbal feedback is given. They assume disinterest or superiority when in fact it's simply composure. The Sigma's calm demeanor disrupts this social rhythm. His restraint challenges the unspoken rule that everyone must constantly prove engagement. While most use words to gain approval, the Sigma uses silence to maintain authenticity. Ironically, this quiet strength often amplifies his presence. Studies on charisma and nonverbal communication show that people who speak less but with intention are perceived as more competent and confident. Their pauses create weight. Their stillness commands attention. A Sigma's silence, therefore, is not emptiness. It's precision. It's how he filters chaos, protects peace, and communicates control without a word. In a noisy world, his quiet becomes power, and that power, misunderstood by many, is what makes people uneasy. Number 3, your self-respect makes others question theirs. Sigma males possess an invisible strength that doesn't require explanation, a silent power rooted in their boundaries. These boundaries aren't drawn with loud declarations or social media posts about cutting people off. They've lived quietly and consistently. A Sigma male doesn't need to argue or prove his worth when faced with disrespect, manipulation, or unnecessary drama. He simply walks away, not to punish anyone, but to protect his peace. This detachment confuses many because we live in a world that glorifies reaction, People expect confrontation, validation, or emotional chaos. But the Sigma operates on a higher emotional frequency, where stillness speaks louder than shouting. Psychologically, this behavior reflects what experts call emotional regulation, the ability to manage one's inner state without external validation. Studies in emotional intelligence suggest that people with strong self-regulation handle conflicts by disengaging rather than escalating. Sigma males embody this. Their refusal to engage in drama isn't avoidance, it's discipline. By choosing silence over argument, they maintain control over their emotions and energy. This restraint makes others uncomfortable, especially those addicted to attention and chaos. The Sigma's calm feels like rejection to emotionally reactive individuals who equate loudness with care. When he walks away, the silence he leaves behind becomes a mirror. It forces people to face their own immaturity, insecurity, and lack of self-control. Instead of learning from it, many respond defensively, calling him cold, arrogant, or emotionless. But what they label as arrogance is often self-respect, and what they call coldness is clarity. The Sigma's boundaries remind others that peace is not negotiable. He doesn't stay where he's merely tolerated, and he doesn't argue with people committed to misunderstanding him. Sociologically, this trait aligns with low social dependency, a characteristic of individuals who derive satisfaction internally rather than from group approval. It's what makes the Sigma appear mysterious and intimidating. His absence feels heavier than most people's presence because it carries intention, and that intention to protect his focus, peace, and growth is what sets him apart in a noisy world. In essence, the Sigma male's quiet withdrawal isn't a sign of arrogance, it's the highest form of self-command. While others exhaust themselves proving points, he preserves his power in silence. And that silence, disciplined and deliberate, becomes his loudest statement, one that says, "My peace is not up for negotiation." Number 4, your focus exposes their distractions. While others chase attention, the Sigma quietly builds his goals, his craft, his peace. This quiet focus often becomes the most unsettling thing for those around him, not because he flaunts success, but because his progress exposes what others have neglected within themselves. Psychologists refer to this phenomenon as upward comparison, a term from social comparison theory first introduced by psychologist Leon Festinger in 1954. It describes the discomfort people feel when they measure themselves against someone they perceive as doing better in career, relationships, self-control, or even inner peace. When others see the Sigma advancing without validation or applause, it challenges their belief that attention and recognition are the pathways to progress. His independence becomes a mirror, reflecting back their dependency on approval. What makes this so fascinating is how the Sigma's silence amplifies his presence. In social psychology, there's something called the observer effect. People tend to project their insecurities onto those who remain emotionally neutral. Because the Sigma doesn't explain himself, others are forced to interpret his quiet through their own lens. If they feel inadequate, they perceive arrogance. If they crave validation, they sense rejection. His lack of need for external acknowledgement creates a psychological imbalance in group dynamics. It breaks the unspoken social rule that success should be visible and socially negotiated. The Sigma doesn't compete out loud. He competes only with yesterday's version of himself. This is where his power truly lies. While many spread their energy across social media impressions, workplace politics, or social approval loops, the Sigma channels his energy inward. Neuroscience even backs this up. Studies show that deep work and sustained focus activate the brain's prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for planning, self-control, and creative problem-solving. Over time, this mental discipline compounds into what psychologists call flow state mastery, the ability to lose oneself completely in purposeful action. And so, as others exhaust themselves seeking to be seen, the Sigma's quiet consistency becomes his statement. He doesn't announce growth. He becomes it. The irony is that his peace, the very thing he builds privately, often disturbs those still addicted to noise. Yet in that disturbance lies his silent triumph. Because the moment people start feeling uneasy about your calm, it's not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's proof that your self-mastery is working. Number 5, your authenticity breaks social illusions. Sigma males don't fake charm or adopt group identities. They show up real even when it's unpopular. This trait makes them stand out in a world where many people wear social masks to fit in. Authenticity for them isn't a performance, it's a principle. They aren't interested in adjusting their personality to please a crowd or bending their morals to gain approval. They'd rather walk alone in truth than stand in a crowd built on illusion. Psychologically, this is tied to what researchers call self-congruence, the alignment between one's internal values and external behavior. Studies in personality psychology show that people who live in high self-congruence experience less stress and greater life satisfaction. But they also tend to face more social resistance. Why? Because authenticity exposes inauthenticity. When a Sigma male walks into a room, he doesn't play the social games that others rely on. He doesn't flatter to get favors or echo popular opinions to blend in. His calm detachment, his refusal to fake interest or join in shallow trends, these things quietly challenge the status quo. His presence becomes a mirror that reflects everyone else's pretense. And that's why authenticity, while magnetic, can also be confronting. It makes people question their own motives, their own masks. Some admire it, others feel threatened by it. Authentic people subconsciously remind others of the parts of themselves they've buried to be accepted. Sociologists note that modern culture thrives on image, the curated versions of ourselves presented through social media, fashion, and trends. We live in what Irving Goffman called the presentation of self, a kind of performance meant to earn social rewards. Sigma males, however, reject this unspoken performance economy. They communicate directly, act with self-control, and aren't afraid to stand in their truth even when it costs them popularity. That level of independence is rare, and it unsettles those who depend on collective validation for their identity. In essence, Sigma authenticity is a quiet rebellion against the artificial. It's not arrogance or defiance, it's inner alignment. They're not trying to be different. They're simply not trying to be the same. Their power lies in being unedited in a world that rewards imitation. People may not always understand it, but deep down they feel it. And that's why, even when society resists them, their presence lingers, like an echo of truth in a room full of noise. Number 6, your calm cannot be manipulated. Emotional stability is one of the rarest forms of power a man can possess. It's not the kind of strength that shouts or boasts. It's the quiet force that disarms chaos. When someone tries to provoke you and you remain calm, you've already won. In that moment, they realize they have no control over your inner world, and that realization unsettles them. Most people operate on emotional triggers. They thrive on reaction because reaction equals validation. When you deny them that emotional fuel, they feel powerless, and powerless people often resort to resentment. This is why emotionally grounded men are sometimes misunderstood or even disliked. Their calmness exposes others' lack of control. Psychologically, this ties into what's known as the locus of control. People with an internal locus of control, like the Sigma male, believe they're responsible for their responses, not their circumstances. They don't hand over emotional authority to others. Instead of reacting impulsively, they pause, observe, and decide. This pause isn't weakness, it's a strategic gap where emotional intelligence takes over. Neuroscience even supports this idea. Studies show that when we practice emotional regulation, the prefrontal cortex, the rational part of the brain, overrides the amygdala, the emotional center. That's the biology of composure and action. But the Sigma's calm doesn't come from detachment or coldness. It's not that he feels nothing, it's that he has learned to master what he feels. He channels emotion like a craftsman controls fire, enough to forge strength, but never so much that it consumes him. This mastery gives him presence. People sense it in his tone, his timing, and his eyes that don't flinch when challenged. And because he doesn't waste energy reacting to every provocation, he directs that same energy into growth, purpose, and clarity. This is the real secret of his power. He owns his reactions, and therefore he owns himself. In a world that profits from outrage and impulsive behavior, emotional stability is rebellion. It's the mark of a man who refuses to be manipulated by people, by society, or by his own impulses. When the world is noisy, he remains centered. When others are ruled by ego, he is ruled by discipline. And that ultimately is why emotional stability isn't just peace, it's power. So if people begin to dislike you for your peace, your discipline, your independence, let them. Their reaction is proof you've become what they secretly wish to be. Free, self-defined, and untouchable. Never dim your presence to make others comfortable. Stay grounded in quiet strength. That is the true nature of a Sigma male. There's something quietly fascinating and deeply uncommon about the way Sigma males engage in love. Not because they lack feeling, but because they love differently in a way that's both singular and profound. If you've ever wondered why the Sigma heart can feel like a distant horizon, or why love with a Sigma man can feel both exhilarating and disorienting, you're not alone. Imagine standing on the shore watching a sunset that no one else seems to notice. You're drawn to it, not because it shouts, but because it whispers. That's the Sigma way. In relationships, Sigma men don't follow standard scripts. They don't mirror what others do. They craft their own emotional currents, subtle yet deep, quiet yet constant. At first glance, this can feel odd. Why aren't they like anyone else, you might wonder? Why doesn't a Sigma male follow the same romantic rhythms we're taught to expect? That's because his connection is grounded in authenticity, introspection, and a fierce sense of independence. It's not indifference. It's not detachment. It's simply that Sigma men love on their own terms, terms shaped by a mind that values personal space as much as emotional closeness. Their love may not look normal because it isn't, but therein lies its peculiar value, in the soft-spoken gestures, the unexpected depths, and the silent loyalty. In this video, we'll gently explore 8 quietly powerful reasons why Sigma males in relationships are the furthest thing from normal. Not in a dramatic, flashy sense, but in a grounded, introspective way that invites you to reconsider what love can be. Let's take this journey together. Number 1, deep independence over conventional closeness. Sigma males nurture love in a way that is both rare and refreshing. They stay grounded in self-sufficiency. Unlike individuals who step into relationships out of loneliness or a need to fill emotional voids, the Sigma male approaches love from a place of inner stability. He is whole on his own, and this makes his presence in a relationship intentional rather than obligatory. Psychologists often point out that dependency in relationships can create imbalance, where one partner carries the weight of providing constant validation or security. The Sigma male, however, flips this script. He understands that genuine love is not about clinging to someone for fear of being alone, but about choosing to share space, time, and energy with someone who enriches his life. This is why his presence carries so much weight. When he's there, it's because he genuinely wants to be, not because he needs to be. Historically, some of the most influential figures who exhibited Sigma-like traits, think Nikola Tesla or Albert Einstein, thrived in solitude yet formed deep connections when they did engage, proving that independence does not mean isolation. In fact, studies in relationship psychology reveal that partners who maintain individuality often experience healthier, longer-lasting bonds because they avoid the toxic cycle of codependency. The Sigma male embodies this balance by being self-reliant but emotionally available. His strength lies in the paradox of not needing love to survive, but choosing to give it freely, making his affection deeply authentic. In modern culture, where social norms often pressure people to equate constant availability with love, the Sigma male redefines intimacy. His love is steady, quiet, and intentional, grounded in the truth that commitment without dependency creates freedom within the relationship. This doesn't mean he is detached or unfeeling. On the contrary, his independence allows him to love with clarity, without the cloud of desperation or insecurity. He knows that the best partnerships are built when two complete individuals come together, not two halves searching to be whole. This mindset transforms his relationships into something more than romance. They become partnerships rooted in mutual respect and growth. By staying grounded in self-sufficiency, the Sigma male shows that the truest form of love is not born from need, but from choice, and that choice is what makes his presence so profoundly powerful. Number 2, selective intimacy, not constant togetherness. Sigma males often puzzle people because of the way they approach connection. Unlike more outwardly expressive personalities, they don't see the point in constant displays of affection or performative closeness. For them, relationships are not about filling silence with chatter or gestures meant to reassure others every 5 minutes. Instead, they save their affection for when it truly matters, creating moments that feel authentic rather than routine. This is why being close to a Sigma often feels deeply meaningful, because their attention isn't scattered, it's intentional. Their absence shouldn't be mistaken for neglect or emotional coldness. Rather, it reflects a thoughtful guarding of space that allows them to preserve their independence and inner balance. Psychology highlights that individuals with introverted or contemplative tendencies often need solitude to recharge their mental energy. Sigmas embody this principle to an extreme, treating alone time as essential rather than optional. In fact, studies on interpersonal dynamics suggest that when people balance personal space with moments of genuine closeness, their relationships tend to be more sustainable and less prone to burnout. A Sigma's restraint actually prevents superficiality, ensuring that when they do engage, it carries weight. Picture someone who rarely says, "I love you," but when they do, it's under circumstances that make the words unforgettable. That's the Sigma's way. Their guarded space isn't a wall to keep people out, but a filter to let the right people in, and at the right times. This can be both frustrating and refreshing for those around them. Frustrating because society often conditions us to equate affection with frequency, but refreshing because it strips away the noise and keeps only what is real. Even in professional settings, Sigma males display this same quality. They won't crowd others with unnecessary meetings or empty praise. But when they speak up, it is usually sharp, insightful, and impactful. In an age of oversharing and constant digital noise, their scarcity of expression makes their presence feel rare and valuable. To understand them is to realize that their silence is not disinterest, but a form of respect for themselves, for their boundaries, and for the people they choose to let close. Ultimately, their way of reserving closeness is not a flaw, but a different rhythm of connection, one that values depth over display and authenticity over routine. Number 3, emotion expressed through actions, not words. A Sigma's love speaks in quiet deeds, small acts, consistent attentiveness, and subtle support. Unlike the loud declarations or performative gestures that some may rely on to showcase affection, the Sigma male operates differently. His care is never about putting on a display, but about being genuinely present. Psychologists often highlight the idea that true intimacy is not built on grand, sporadic gestures, but on reliability and small demonstrations of commitment over time. This aligns perfectly with the Sigma's nature, as he prefers to express his love in ways that are understated yet deeply impactful. For instance, he may not flood your social media feed with declarations of love, but he will remember the little details about your life that matter: your favorite drink, the way you like your space organized, or the dreams you quietly mentioned months ago. Research on long-term relationships suggests that couples who thrive tend to practice these very habits: attentiveness, active listening, and unspoken acts of service. The Sigma's way of showing love mirrors this evidence, making it not only genuine but also sustainable. What makes his love particularly unique is that it isn't tied to external validation. While some people may use affection as a tool to gain recognition or social praise, the Sigma male gives quietly because it's rooted in his authenticity, not in seeking attention. This makes his affection rare because it's not conditional or self-serving. He may not always use words to articulate his emotions, but his actions, helping you in moments of need, making sacrifices without mentioning them, or offering silent encouragement when you doubt yourself, speak volumes. In fact, relationship experts often note that consistent small gestures, like leaving a note of encouragement or offering undistracted presence, create stronger bonds than occasional dramatic surprises. The Sigma's love style proves that real connection is not about noise, but about depth. It's a love that doesn't scream for acknowledgement, but instead whispers with certainty, "I'm here, I see you, and you matter." For those who experience it, Sigma love feels like a steady flame, never blinding, never fleeting, but enduring and reliable. In a world where so much love is broadcast for show, the Sigma's quiet but steady affection stands out as one of the most authentic forms of devotion. Number 4. Preference for honesty over romantic idealism. Romantic gestures may be rare, but sincerity is not, and this distinction is often misunderstood. Many people have been conditioned by movies, novels, and social media to believe that love must constantly be expressed through grand, sweeping gestures, bouquets of roses, surprise getaways, or dramatic declarations under the stars. While these acts can certainly be beautiful, they are not always the foundation of a deep and lasting connection. Research in psychology suggests that genuine communication, emotional honesty, and small acts of consistency often weigh heavier in building trust and intimacy than extravagant gestures. For instance, Dr. John Gottman, a leading relationship expert, found in his decades of studies that couples who thrive long-term are those who prioritize everyday bids for connection, like listening attentively, acknowledging each other's feelings, and offering comfort in small moments. Sincerity is what makes a relationship withstand the test of time, because it is not dependent on resources, timing, or performance. It stems from truthfulness. Even silence, when shared sincerely, can communicate more than 1,000 rehearsed words. Think of two people sitting together after a long day. Nothing needs to be spoken, but the unspoken presence says, "I'm here, I care, and I see you." That kind of authenticity cannot be faked, and it builds a foundation of emotional safety. Furthermore, sincerity is accessible to everyone, while grand romantic gestures are often limited by circumstance. A handwritten note, a genuine apology, or a look that says, "I understand you," can penetrate deeper than an expensive dinner. Across cultures, this has always been recognized. Ancient philosophers like Seneca and Confucius emphasized truth and intention in human relationships over material display, reminding us that the heart craves depth, not decoration. When someone values sincerity, they don't need a performance. They need your presence. This is why relationships built on honesty, vulnerability, and consistent communication often last longer and weather storms that more superficial connections cannot. At the end of the day, sincerity is the language of trust, and trust is the soil in which love grows. Romantic gestures may capture attention for a moment, but sincerity captures hearts for a lifetime. And perhaps that is the most romantic truth of all. Love doesn't always need to be loudly expressed to be deeply felt. It simply needs to be real. Number 5, freedom is a love language. In relationships, Sigma males approach love in a way that may seem unconventional but is deeply fulfilling once understood. For them, autonomy isn't something to be feared, it's something to be honored. Unlike many who may equate love with constant presence, control, or reassurance, Sigma males thrive when there's a balance between intimacy and independence. They aren't cold or detached. In fact, they're highly capable of forming deep emotional bonds, but they know that genuine love flourishes in an environment where both partners maintain a sense of individuality. Psychology even supports this idea. Studies in relational science show that healthy partnerships strike a balance between connection and personal freedom, with independence actually strengthening long-term satisfaction. Sigma males embody this principle naturally. They love best when their partner respects their need for space just as much as their need for closeness. To them, suffocating relationships where one person becomes overly dependent feel more like chains than bonds. Instead, they see love as two complete individuals walking side by side, not one half seeking completion in another. This is why they're often misunderstood. What some mistake as aloofness is actually a deep respect for boundaries and mutual growth. In fact, autonomy in relationships has been shown to boost creativity, emotional regulation, and even conflict resolution because both partners come to the table as whole, balanced individuals. For Sigma males, independence doesn't weaken intimacy, it strengthens it. They want to be with someone who not only values the connection, but also nurtures their own goals, passions, and identity outside the relationship. When a partner understands this balance, the relationship becomes both liberating and deeply secure. There's no fear of losing oneself in the bond, because individuality is celebrated, not erased. This kind of love allows both people to grow without limits, and it creates a partnership based on trust, freedom, and genuine respect. In a world where many see closeness as the ultimate sign of love, Sigma males remind us that sometimes the truest intimacy is found in the space where independence and connection coexist harmoniously. Number 6, learning partnership through observation. Sigma males often show their understanding not through long-winded conversations, but through subtle, deliberate action. Unlike more extroverted personalities who may rely on constant dialogue to demonstrate interest, Sigma males are often quiet observers, keenly tuned into the details others tend to overlook. Psychologists suggest that active listening is one of the strongest indicators of empathy, and Sigma males tend to excel in this area. They give their full attention without interrupting, which allows them to pick up on nuances in tone, body language, and word choice. This makes them highly perceptive, and their responses, though fewer in number, carry weight because they are carefully considered rather than impulsively spoken. In social dynamics, this sets Sigma males apart as individuals who value depth over noise and clarity over chatter. For example, while many people may respond quickly to fill silence, a Sigma male will often pause, think, and then provide an answer that reveals not only his understanding of the conversation, but also his ability to connect it to broader insights or real-life solutions. Historically, this quality can be linked to traits found in great thinkers, leaders, and innovators. Figures who preferred observation and reflection before acting, such as Nikola Tesla, who was known for his reserved nature and profound ability to see connections others missed. Educational studies on communication styles highlight that non-verbal cues like eye contact and attentive posture account for nearly 55% of effective communication, and Sigma males often excel in this silent yet powerful form of expression. What makes their approach entertaining in its own right is how understated it can be. People often find themselves surprised when the quietest man in the room delivers the most insightful comment or takes the most effective action, reminding us that true understanding doesn't need to be loud to be impactful. In relationships and friendships, this behavior often creates a sense of safety and trust, as others feel genuinely heard and valued rather than brushed aside. It is this ability to listen deeply, notice subtle shifts, and respond with intention that gives Sigma males their enigmatic reputation, seemingly detached on the surface, yet deeply attuned beneath it all. Their silence is not ignorance, it is strategy, reflection, and respect rolled into one. Number 7, quiet loyalty over dramatic proof. Their dedication isn't loud, but it is steady, and that's what makes it so powerful. In a world where people often equate love, loyalty, or commitment with flashy gestures and over-the-top declarations, true dedication can seem almost invisible. Yet history and psychology both show us that consistency is far more reliable than intensity. For example, researchers studying long-term relationships have found that trust is not built overnight through one grand act, but rather through small, dependable behaviors repeated over time. Things like showing up when you say you will, keeping promises, or listening without distraction. This principle extends beyond relationships and into every area of life. Consider athletes who achieve greatness not because of one dramatic training session, but through years of daily discipline, often in obscurity, while no one is watching. Similarly, successful entrepreneurs rarely strike gold overnight. Instead, they build their empires brick by brick through persistence, attention to detail, and the willingness to stay the course when others give up. Even in the natural world, we see the same pattern. Rivers carve valleys not by sudden force, but by steady flowing across centuries. Dedication, then, is less about the noise it makes and more about the stability it offers. A person whose commitment is quiet but unwavering becomes someone others can lean on, because reliability is ultimately more valuable than dramatics. The paradox is that this kind of steady dedication often goes unnoticed in the moment, but it compounds over time, producing results that no short-lived burst of energy could ever achieve. It's a reminder that trust, success, and even love are less about fireworks and more about the slow-burning flame that never goes out. Number 8, love that reflects personal growth, not fixed roles. A Sigma's approach to romance is never static. It matures and deepens as they evolve internally. Unlike those who chase surface-level attraction or temporary validation, the Sigma male tends to view relationships as an extension of his own growth. This doesn't mean he avoids love or detaches from connection, but rather that he sees romance as something built on progress rather than stagnation. Research in psychology suggests that people who actively pursue personal development often foster healthier, more resilient relationships, and Sigma males embody this principle almost naturally. They are introspective, self-reliant, and often unafraid to question themselves, which means their romantic bonds tend to reflect that same honesty and adaptability. For the Sigma, attraction is not just about charm or chemistry. It's about finding a partner who values mutual self-improvement, someone who understands that a relationship thrives when both individuals are constantly becoming better versions of themselves. This makes their love life less about drama or control and more about partnership and growth. In fact, studies show that couples who encourage each other's ambitions and self-discovery report higher long-term satisfaction. A Sigma embraces this dynamic wholeheartedly, often inspiring their partner to rise to higher levels of confidence, independence, and emotional strength. Instead of needing someone to complete them, they seek a bond where both people are already whole, choosing to walk together not out of dependency but out of shared purpose. That's why a Sigma's romance can feel both freeing and profound. It's not a cage, but a catalyst, a connection that mirrors the internal evolution happening within. Their relationships are rarely about fitting societal molds. They're about creating a private world that values authenticity, growth, and the quiet power of two strong individuals building something extraordinary side by side. If Sigma love feels unusual, perhaps that's because it reflects something more elemental, something real. A kind of love that listens in silence, honors the self first, and holds connection in a quiet, steady light. We've explored 8 ways Sigma males redefine romance, not by rejecting love, but by loving on their own deeply considered terms. Maybe the next time you encounter a Sigma love, it won't feel strange. You'll sense the quiet authenticity beneath, and that is the most uncommon and perhaps the most beautiful part of all. Some walk through life unnoticed, blending into the background, while others leave a trail of whispers wherever they go. They don't chase attention, yet people can't help but watch. They don't need to dominate, yet their presence demands respect. These are the Sigma males, silent, calculated, and unpredictable. In a world that is loud and relentless, where hierarchies, expectations, and social systems scream for compliance, most men respond with effort, aggression, or anxiety. The Sigma male, however, operates differently. He observes, he analyzes, he moves without seeking approval or validation, understanding something most will never grasp. True power is quiet, and influence is invisible until it becomes undeniable. This is what makes him dangerous, not because he actively seeks conflict, but because he cannot be controlled. His danger is subtle, penetrating spaces where chaos and impulsivity dominate. In meetings, he sits quietly, calculating his next move with precision. In relationships, he engages selectively, revealing his depth only when it serves a purpose. In life, he moves strategically, ensuring that no one else dictates his path. Psychology studies on personality types, particularly those exploring dominance and introversion, support this idea. Individuals who score high in self-reliance, emotional regulation, and strategic thinking often command influence without overt displays of power. The Sigma male embodies this, having mastered himself before the world can attempt to shape him. No manipulator can pull strings, no alpha can overshadow him, and no external noise can sway his focus. He doesn't compete in pre-established arenas, he builds his own. From a social dynamics perspective, this self-containment and selective engagement allow the Sigma male to navigate both hierarchical and chaotic systems with agility and foresight. This mastery over self, coupled with an innate ability to read and respond to others, creates an aura of quiet dominance, a presence that is both magnetic and formidable. Unlike traditional leaders who rely on assertion and visibility, the Sigma male wields influence like an invisible force, shaping outcomes without ever demanding the spotlight. In essence, his power is subtle, his strategy meticulous, and his danger undeniable, not through aggression, but through the unshakable control he holds over his own life. Today we explore 8 ways Sigma males show that they're dangerous, not through force, not through spectacle, but through precision, control, and the quiet mastery of the self. Point 1. He disrupts without aggression. The world thrives on noise, spectacle, and overt displays of dominance. Society teaches us to believe that power is measured by volume, aggression, and visible control. Yet the Sigma male operates in a realm that most cannot perceive, a subtle dimension where presence itself commands authority. He does not announce his arrival with fanfare. Instead, he moves silently, deliberately, and with an almost imperceptible grace, like a shadow that slips between cracks in the social fabric. When he enters a room, he does not compete for attention, and yet attention is inevitably drawn to him. Scientists studying human behavior and influence, such as those in social psychology, often note that certain individuals can affect group dynamics without speaking a word, simply through body language, energy, and the strategic use of silence. This is the Sigma male in action. His influence is absorbed unconsciously by those around him, and even systems that seem unshakable feel subtle tremors in his presence. Unlike traditional leaders who demand recognition, the Sigma does not seek to dominate. His impact is a natural byproduct of his independence and self-mastery. Neuroscience has shown that human brains respond strongly to unexpected patterns and behaviors. This is why a Sigma male's calm, unorthodox approach creates both curiosity and tension. People notice him before they understand why, and his actions often inspire imitation or anxiety, even without intention. In many ways, he functions as a living disruption, challenging norms and expectations simply by being true to his own path. Historical figures who operated outside conventional hierarchies, visionaries, inventors, and revolutionary thinkers often exhibited similar traits. They reshaped environments quietly but irrevocably. The Sigma male embodies this timeless archetype, merging observation with action and intuition with restraint. He does not seek conflict, yet systems that relied on predictability and control find themselves unsettled in his wake. Influence, like a subtle vibration, radiates from him and alters the trajectory of those nearby. It is neither loud nor boastful. It is undeniable, insidious in the best sense, and deeply magnetic. The disruption he causes is never premeditated, for it is not sought. It is the inevitable consequence of existing in a way that the world is unprepared to understand. His presence is felt long before it can be labeled, leaving a lingering impression on minds and systems alike, and proving that true power often lies not in force, but in the silent mastery of self and the quiet reshaping of the world around him. Point 2, he sees patterns others miss. Where others perceive chaos, he sees patterns, an underlying order that is invisible to most. The world is a maze of social structures, unspoken rules, and hidden hierarchies, and to him these are not mere background noise, they are a map. Every conversation, every gesture, every fleeting glance carries information that he instinctively decodes, turning what others dismiss as trivial into actionable insight. His silence is rarely empty, it is deliberate, a shield that conceals meticulous observation and mental calculation. In social settings, the average person reacts instinctively, often swayed by emotions or peer pressure, but he absorbs the environment, analyzing motives, connections, and opportunities with the precision of a chess master surveying the board. Research in behavioral psychology shows that individuals who can read subtle social cues, micro-expressions, tone shifts, and body language often wield influence without overt authority. This is precisely how he operates, quietly, strategically, and with unmatched foresight. He anticipates outcomes before they materialize, positioning himself in spaces where others cannot compete. Where many stumble blindly, he moves with calculated intention, predicting reactions and preempting problems. It is not arrogance, it is a disciplined understanding of cause and effect, a recognition that every action, no matter how small, sends ripples through the social and professional spheres around him. Neuroscientific studies reveal that high-functioning individuals often exhibit heightened activity in the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for decision-making, planning, and understanding social hierarchies, an ability to weigh options and foresee consequences that appears almost instinctual. In essence, he transforms observation into power. To the casual observer, his presence may seem enigmatic, even intimidating. He does not seek validation, nor does he compete for attention. Instead, he conserves his energy, directing it only where it matters, making calculated moves that others can neither predict nor counter. The quiet dominance he exerts is not built on aggression or charm alone. It is the product of relentless attention to detail, emotional intelligence, and the capacity to see patterns where others see only noise. In a world full of distractions, he thrives in the gaps, the silences, and the overlooked spaces. He reminds us that true influence is rarely loud. It is precise, informed, and inevitable, emerging from an acute awareness of the world that most cannot fathom. Where others see randomness, he discovers order, and it is in that order that his power is made unmistakably clear. Point 3. Self-mastery over impulse. The Sigma male's true power lies not in domination over others, but in mastery over himself, a mastery that precedes any attempt the world might make to define, challenge, or control him. He understands that every choice carries weight, so nothing is left to chance. Decisions are not reactions born from fleeting emotion, but deliberate acts shaped by insight, strategy, and self-awareness. While ordinary men might be tossed by fear, pride, or impatience, the Sigma recognizes these impulses as natural human responses and uses them as tools rather than allowing them to dictate his behavior. Fear can become a guide, highlighting risk and shaping careful preparation. Pride can become a mirror, reflecting areas in which he can improve rather than seeking validation from others. Impatience, when understood and harnessed, transforms into focused energy that propels him toward long-term goals. In this way, emotional intelligence becomes an instrument of subtle strength, far more formidable than brute force or loud aggression. Self-mastery is dangerous because it is silent yet unyielding. Calm precision, honed through awareness and restraint, carries more weight than anger, which is fleeting, reactive, and often self-defeating. History is filled with examples of leaders, inventors, and strategists whose patience and measured approach outmaneuvered rivals, fueled by impulsive rage. The Sigma male operates in a similar realm. His power is not in creating spectacle, but in executing calculated actions that ripple far beyond immediate perception. His environment often underestimates him because he does not need to prove himself. The world only sees the effects of his deliberate choices. This is a mindset rooted in psychological discipline and philosophy, echoing the principles of Stoicism, where internal control and reasoned action triumph over external chaos. Every decision, from the smallest interaction to the largest life-altering choice, is filtered through this lens of self-command. His calm, controlled presence commands respect without demanding it. He moves with intention, aware that true strength is measured not by impulsive dominance, but by the ability to navigate life's unpredictability with clarity and confidence. In a society obsessed with reaction, noise, and immediate gratification, The Sigma male's quiet authority is revolutionary. He demonstrates that the most dangerous power is not the one that lashes out, but the one that remains unfazed, deliberate, and entirely in control of itself, turning internal mastery into an unstoppable force in the external world. Point 4, independence is his shield. He needs nothing from anyone: approval, validation, money, or praise. This is not a statement of arrogance, but a reflection of complete self-sufficiency, a hallmark of the Sigma male mindset. Independence, in this sense, is often misunderstood as loneliness, but it is far more than that. It is armor. While the majority of people are constantly seeking approval, negotiating social hierarchies, and measuring themselves against the standards of others, he moves through life untethered, guided by his own principles and goals. Psychologists note that this form of self-reliance is a form of emotional intelligence, a recognition that external validation is fleeting and ultimately unreliable. By detaching from the constant need to fit in or impress, he cultivates a rare kind of freedom, one that allows him to operate outside the arenas where men typically compete for power, status, or influence. This independence does not mean he avoids society or lacks ambition. Rather, it means that his actions are motivated by internal standards, not external pressures. Neuroscience has shown that people who rely less on social approval have more resilient stress responses and are better able to make rational decisions under pressure. In a world where most are swayed by opinion, trends, or fear of rejection, he remains untouchable, moving with precision and discretion, almost invisible yet profoundly impactful. The paradox is clear. The less the world can sway him, the more dangerous he becomes. Not in a physical sense, but in the quiet power of someone who cannot be manipulated or controlled. Leaders, influencers, and even adversaries often underestimate this kind of strength, assuming that social detachment equates to weakness, when in reality it is an unshakable core that allows him to act with clarity, confidence, and strategic foresight. History is filled with figures who exemplified this principle, from solitary strategists like Miyamoto Musashi, who mastered the art of war through discipline and detachment, to modern innovators who thrived precisely because they refused to conform to conventional expectations. Ultimately, this kind of independence is a rare form of mastery, over oneself, over distractions, and over the subtle pressures that govern ordinary lives. It is both shield and weapon, a quiet, formidable force in a world that constantly tries to define and confine human potential. Point 5, he commands respect without demand. Respect is a currency that cannot be bought, borrowed, or demanded. It must be earned, and the Sigma male understands this principle better than anyone. Unlike those who rely on volume, displays of wealth, or outward aggression to assert dominance, the Sigma's influence is subtle, almost invisible, yet incredibly potent. He doesn't need to announce his presence, it is felt. Neuroscience tells us that human attention is naturally drawn to confidence and competence. When someone demonstrates mastery over their emotions, decisions, and environment, others instinctively recognize and defer to that authority. The Sigma leverages this truth effortlessly. While alphas might command a room with loud proclamations, gestures, or displays of power, the Sigma exerts a quieter, more insidious force. His influence does not come from noise, but from the weight of his integrity, the precision of his actions, and the clarity of his purpose. Studies in social psychology show that people often respect those who operate independently of social validation because self-sufficiency signals competence, security, and confidence, qualities the Sigma embodies. His quietness is not a weakness, but a strategy. Every action is calculated, every word measured. In fact, research in leadership and behavioral science confirms that restraint can often be more effective than forceful persuasion. By observing, listening, and understanding the dynamics around him, the Sigma positions himself to act at the precise moment, making his moves more impactful than those of someone constantly seeking approval. This is why his presence is undeniable. It carries an unspoken authority that cannot be ignored. The Sigma does not conform to societal pressures or conventional hierarchies. He defines his own rules, and through this independence he cultivates a magnetic aura. People may not always understand him, but they feel compelled to acknowledge him. It is in this combination of quiet intelligence, strategic patience, and unwavering self-possession that the Sigma earns respect, not by demanding it, not by asserting it, but simply by existing in a way that commands recognition. To witness a Sigma is to see the paradox of subtle dominance. He is everywhere and nowhere, moving through life with a presence that speaks louder than words ever could. His world is one of deliberate action, quiet mastery, and undeniable impact, proving that true respect is not given, it is experienced. Point 6. He is unpredictable and hard to manipulate. A Sigma male's ability to see through manipulation is both fascinating and formidable, and it stems from a combination of keen observation, emotional intelligence, and self-reliance. Unlike most people, he doesn't react impulsively to social cues or pressure. Instead, he analyzes situations quietly, identifying the subtle signals of deception, hidden motives, or hidden agendas. Psychologists have noted that people who possess high emotional intelligence are naturally more resistant to manipulation, as they can read body language, tone, and context with precision, allowing them to anticipate hidden strategies before they are even deployed. For a Sigma male, this skill is almost second nature. When someone attempts to coerce him or play a social game, he often doesn't engage at all. He recognizes early on whether the stakes are worth his energy. This ability to disengage is itself a form of power. While others waste time and energy reacting to drama, he preserves his focus for what truly matters. His unpredictability amplifies this effect. In social psychology, unpredictability is a recognized deterrent. It prevents others from forming patterns or strategies to influence behavior. Because he refuses to conform to expectations, whether from authority, peers, or societal norms, others quickly realize they cannot control him. This independence is not arrogance, it's strategic autonomy. By existing outside conventional manipulation and social coercion, he creates an aura of quiet authority and self-possession. People may try to test him, but their games fail, often leaving them frustrated or bewildered. In essence, his strength lies in his detachment. He moves through life guided by his own compass, unaffected by the pressures or schemes that ensnare those who rely too heavily on external validation. This combination of insight, autonomy, and unpredictability makes the Sigma male uniquely resilient in social dynamics, a figure both enigmatic and untouchable, quietly navigating the world on his own terms. Point 7. He turns solitude into power. Solitude is often misunderstood as loneliness or absence, but in truth, it is one of the most powerful catalysts for growth and creation. While society chases constant stimulation through social media, entertainment, and endless obligations, those who embrace solitude step into a realm where true mastery is possible. Time alone allows the mind to sharpen, focus, and innovate in ways crowded environments rarely permit. Historical figures from Leonardo da Vinci to Nikola Tesla understood this principle, retreating into periods of intense isolation to experiment, invent, and cultivate ideas that would later transform the world. In solitude, the body can be trained with discipline, the intellect honed with study, and the spirit deepened through reflection. Neuroscience even supports the benefits of solitude. Research shows that moments of quiet reflection improve memory, boost creativity, and enhance emotional regulation. Far from being wasted, these hours are investments in personal power and influence. They allow one to observe patterns unnoticed by the distracted masses, to think deeply, and to make connections others miss. Each moment spent alone is an act of preparation, laying the groundwork for achievements that are impossible to reach in constant noise. Solitude is not a void, it is fertile soil. In its quiet, one grows resilient, wise, and strategic, developing skills that ripple outward in subtle but profound ways. Influence, leadership, and creativity are often born in the stillness, proving that those who master the art of solitude are quietly shaping destinies that no crowd can shape for them. Point 8. He leaves impact without visibility. His legacy is a study in subtle power, the kind that moves quietly but leaves an undeniable imprint. Unlike those who chase attention or accolades, he operates in the background, shaping outcomes without ever stepping into the spotlight. Sociologists and historians often note this type of influence. People may not recognize it immediately, but systems, communities, and organizations are fundamentally changed by it. Consider the quiet innovators in technology or science. Think of individuals like Nikola Tesla or Rosalind Franklin, whose contributions shaped entire fields even when the world didn't fully acknowledge them at the time. Similarly, in everyday life, some leaders or thinkers leave behind frameworks, ideas, or cultural shifts that outlast their physical presence, proving that influence doesn't require grand gestures. His work resonates not because it demands recognition, but because it addresses underlying needs, solves persistent problems, and inspires those attuned enough to notice. Psychology supports this. Human memory tends to hold on to the effects of actions more than the personalities behind them, meaning that true impact often lingers invisibly. This type of legacy is powerful because it's enduring, like the roots of a tree that stabilize the soil long after the leaves have fallen. It teaches an important lesson about value and contribution. Significance is not measured in applause or headlines, but in the quiet, lasting change that touches systems, people, and generations. In essence, he demonstrates that influence is an art of subtlety, a craft where impact outlives recognition and where the echo of one's efforts quietly shapes the world in ways most will never fully perceive. Danger is not loud. It does not announce itself. It waits, it observes, it acts with precision. Sigma males are dangerous because they master themselves, move strategically, and leave the world changed without ever seeking recognition. Stay curious, be unseen, be unfazed, be unforgettable.